What is good, Raider Nation? I hope you guys are out having a great day out there. Man, it's going to be a great talk today because I'm pumped up to talk about this, man. We're going to talk about the linebackers as well as the safeties. We're going to get into some depth talk specifically, and I'm pumped up to talk about this, man. There's so much that you guys have been asking me specifically to the Raiders linebacking group, especially with the David Irving cut that kind of happened. A lot of you guys have been asking me about the defensive line and kind of what I think will happen. Now, we'll stick away from the defensive line. If you guys have questions, make sure to leave a super chat. I will always answer super chats first. It's not necessary. If you guys leave a good comment and I just happen to scroll right across it, I'll answer that as well. But I'm pumped up, man. I hope you guys are having a great Sunday, man. I hope it's good weather wherever you guys are. I'm here in the Bay Area, and it is super, super cloudy, man. But yeah, I appreciate every single one of you guys. There's already 75-ish of you guys here. So I hit the thumbs up button if you guys could for me. That really does help this channel grow. With that, I appreciate every single one of you guys that are here, man. Jesse wrote us. Thank you for being a member to this channel. I saw your Patreon donation as well. So huge shout out to you. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope you guys can hear me clearly as well. But I'm pretty sure the quality is probably clear because no one's said anything yet. Desi Dude Bombay said, "What's up, Mira dos? You fire, bro." Okay, Desi Dude. Okay. So thank you, man, for being here. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Let's jump into this, man. I really want to discuss the linebackers first, specifically because I think the linebacking group is very deep this year, man. We're deeper than we've probably ever been over the last 10 years, maybe, right? Like, we haven't had a linebacking group like the one we have right now. Aunt Six Soldier left the first super chat of the day, so let's jump into the super chat. It's a great question. What up, Sanjit? Who are going to be the starting defensive tackle, and how many do we keep on the final roster? Here's the thing, right? I did plan to make a full video of this, breaking down every single one of our defensive linemen, kind of where they fit. But maybe we can just jump into it right now. David Irving got cut, and some people were surprised. Like, on my social media, I got so many questions. I got so many people asking why we would cut him. At the same time, I think a lot of people maybe underestimated the Darius brothers, right? Darius Philon and Darius Stills. I think those two guys came to camp and they were ready, man. They're ready to compete. They're ready to play. They want to be on a winning organization. And I think John Gruden and Mike Mayock, but let's be honest, is primarily John Gruden. John Gruden doesn't put up with people's shit, right? If someone's going to talk badly about John Gruden, we saw it happen with Marquette King, who was a fantastic punter, right? From the perspective of being a punter, he was a real good punter. But he talked negatively about John Gruden. He went on, I think, on ESPN. He made some, jokes and stuff like that. And John Gruden was not having it, man. John Gruden got rid of him real quick. Same thing with the Antonio Brown, right? We got rid of him after that whole situation happened with Mike Mayock. Those are tone-setting things that you have to do, right? And with David Irving specifically, now I don't know exactly what happened. I know some people are saying he didn't show up to OTAs. I've heard differently. I actually heard he was there day one of OTAs. So which if he was, right, if the person that told me he was there at OTAs day one, if that person is correct, to me, that means that David Irving went to OTAs, maybe him and Gruden or him and Mayock or him and maybe it's Rod Marinelli. Maybe they talked and they realized that maybe Irving's not where he needs to be with his weight. Maybe it's something else. Maybe there's something else going on. And then I think it was reported that he didn't show up to OTAs after that, or some people were saying he didn't show up to OTAs at all, but I heard he was there day one. I'm sure we'll get the full story soon, but with the defensive line, Aunt Six, thank you again for the super chat. Who are going to be the starting defensive tackle and how many do we keep on the roster? I think we keep 5 defensive tackles on the roster this year. Quinton Jefferson, Jonathan Hankins, Kendall Vickers, and then the last 2 spots is going to be between the other 4 defensive tackles we have, Solomon Thomas, Darius Philon, Darius Stills, and Niles Scott. A lot of people don't talk about Niles Scott, but I think Darius Stales will end up on the practice squad, and I think Solomon Thomas and Darius Fallon make the roster. So we'll have 5 defensive tackles on this team. Huge shout out to you, man, for the super chat. I really do appreciate it. Another super chat from Cool Zay 1995, and right after these super chats, we're gonna jump right into the linebacker. So be ready for that because we're gonna get deep into it, man. Cool Zay, thank you for the super chat. How many sacks do you think we will have this year? As a team, I really don't know, to be honest with you. It's so tough to predict. You know, Yannick Ngakoue has had 10 sacks pretty much every single one of his NFL seasons, and I don't know if he had 10 last season or not. I know he was on 2 separate teams, but if I had to guess, like, I expect at least 25 sacks between the defensive ends alone, right? So Yannick, Max, Carl Nassib, and Cleve Farrell, and throw Kuntz in there as well. I expect at least, right? Not at max, and not what I think, at least 25 sacks, because those guys are the guys that have to get those sacks. And if we get 13 combined sacks between the defensive tackles, I think that's more than enough sacks, because last year, how many do we have between the defensive tackles? Like 6, 7, right? We didn't have a ton of sacks, but from the interior defensive line. So and here's the thing, right? Gus Bradley brings a lot of pressure from different spots, right? He'll be bringing Abram off the edge. He'll be bringing Kwakowski through the middle. He'll be bringing some slots and some corners, blitzing. So we'll have a ton of room for some of those guys as well to get some sacks, right? Let's jump into it, man. We're already 10 minutes into this video. I think actually 5, because technically, the first 4 or 5 minutes I was setting up the thumbnails and all that good stuff. But we're going to jump into the linebackers because this is very important, man. We need to discuss our linebackers. The Raiders are in a very unique position this year, as opposed to like last year or the year before that. We haven't had the type of depth and the type of talent at the linebacking position that we have this year. Like, we're in a very, very good position. But not only do we have good linebackers, right? If you think about it, the linebackers from a positional unit, they're good players, but on top of that, we have a good defensive coach. And the last good defensive coach we had was Jack Del Rio. And I don't even know if that really counts, because Jack Del Rio was a head coach, right? And a head coach, I know they can still set the defense up and they're still responsible for a lot of the calls, or they could be. But the head coach, for the most part, is not responsible for the defense. You still have a defensive coordinator that's going to set the scheme and do all that good stuff. But besides, we have Gus Bradley now. I don't know when we had a good defensive coach. Like, it's been a long time, man. I can't even tell you guys how long it's been. But this year specifically, we have a good defensive coach. Gus Bradley has done it 3 separate times. He's went into systems and built teams 3 separate times. But the one unit that is super important for his success is the linebacking position. And that's what I really want to talk about today, because, a lot of people talk about middle linebackers, strong side linebackers, weak side linebackers. The Raiders really have inside linebackers and outside linebackers, right? That's really what Gus Bradley is going to utilize. Nick Kwakowski is an inside linebacker, and he is a damn good inside linebacker, right? We all saw him play last year, and the guy's all over the field making plays. Like, he'll hit a guy in the backfield, and then he'll have a one-handed interception. Nick Kwakowski is, in my opinion, he should be a true 3-down linebacker. Now, last year, unfortunately, because we didn't have any depth, right? Like, we had guys like Tanner Muse who, if he played, he would have been like the 3rd or 4th linebacker going in. So we didn't have a lot of depth. So Corey Littleton was asked to play 1st down, 2nd down, and 3rd down. Nick Kwakowski was asked to play 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down. And that might not be Kwakowski's best thing to do, right? Same with Corey Littleton. Like, Corey Littleton is not a true 3-down linebacker, right? Like, he could be, but you don't really want him to be, right? Like, if it's 2nd and 1 or 3rd and 1, you don't want Corey Littleton in the game, right? You want Nick Kwakowski, maybe Nicholas Marrow, who, in my opinion, is bigger and stronger than someone like Corey Littleton, right? I think Nicholas Marrow and Kwakowski make more sense on like those run defense, run downs. Corey Littleton makes sense to come in and cover on 3rd and 10. But last year we didn't have that depth, right? This year we have Corey Littleton, we have Nick Kwakowski, and of course Nicholas Marrow. And I think those three guys are going to be the primary linebackers. I think they're going to play a ton. And then Divine Diablo, I think, is going to play a shit ton as well. And don't forget, outside of those guys, we have guys like Javen White, Tanner Muse, Asmar Bilal. I think that's how you say his name. Of course, Max Richardson from Boston College. And I always, for some reason, get FSU and Boston College mixed up. Maybe it's because they both wear like similar colors. But Max Richardson from Boston College, I really like his game, man. I watched tape of his. And he's a downhill linebacker. Like, he's a thumper. He will take guys on, and he will, he'll make tackles in the backfield. I watched a specific play of his, and he was lined up as an inside linebacker. And I saw it was the right guard pull from the right side. He pulled to his left, which was to the right of the screen. And he read the play perfectly, went right underneath the guard and blew the play up for a loss of 2 yards. And it was a 3rd and 1, and the team ended up punting. My point in bringing that play up is those are the type of plays that the Raiders did not make as a defense last year. How many times was it like 3rd and 3, and the defense couldn't get a stop, and we couldn't get off the field, and boom, it's a first down, and the drive keeps going. Like, every single game, like, that happened pretty much on every single drive. Like, if we were lucky to get a team into a 3rd down situation, we didn't have the right packages in there. We didn't have the right players in there, right? Like, Jonathan Hankins last year played the 2nd most pass rushing snaps for the Raiders. That's horrible. Jonathan Hankins is not a pass rusher, but yeah, he played the 2nd most pass rushing snaps, and that's because we didn't have any depth. We have depth this year, man. Defensive tackles, linebackers, safeties. We have depth at every single level. And I think it's really going to have a big impact. Tupac 100 said, "What's up, Sanjit?" Shout out to you, man. I really appreciate it. I see all your comments and your super chats. I appreciate you being live here, and I appreciate all the comments. Andy Salazar said, "What up, Sanjit? I hope you're doing well as well, man." You're right, man. Yincy says we couldn't even stop 3rd and 15, and that is a fact, man. We couldn't even stop 3rd and 15. But this year the linebackers are better, and it's going to be interesting to see how many linebackers make the roster, because if I say 5 defensive tackles are going to be on the active roster, we're going to have 5 defensive ends, right? Technically 3 defensive ends and 2 of those Leo positions, right? And we'll get into the defensive line on my next live video, or maybe the one after. This Wednesday, I should have Samoan Raider on, or maybe Kenny King. I'm going to reach out to both of those guys and see if one of those guys are down to come on. And maybe we'll get someone else, man. I've been reaching out to some people to kind of set up shows. Tomorrow, I'll be on Andy's channel. That's Raiders Football Talk. I'll be going live with him at 5 o'clock. So if you guys aren't subscribed to Raiders Football Talk, go check it out. Andy does a fantastic job. He was on my channel here last Sunday. It was him and Raid the Tape. So I'll be on his channel tomorrow. So if you guys aren't subscribed to him, go subscribe to him. But maybe in the next week or so, I'm going to break down the defensive line. I might even do a film study of the difference between what Cleveland Farrell is going to do for Gus Bradley as opposed to what Malcolm Kuntz is going to do for Gus Bradley, because those are 2 completely different positions. So maybe I'll do a film study of that. But, we're not going to have like 40 defensive players on the active roster, right? So we got to be kind of careful. If we say there's going to be 5 linebackers, are there going to be 5 defensive tackles? Maybe, maybe not. I do think that defensive tackle is a position that Gus Bradley needs a ton of. He needs a variety of defensive tackles, right? Because not only do you have guys that are going to play the 3 tech, the 1 tech, you have guys that are going to have to line up in the 2 technique or in the 2 tech position, as well as someone might have to play the 4 tech, right? Even though it's a 4-3, it's not a typical 4-3. It's a little bit different. Again, maybe that's another film study I can do in the future. But there are at least 4 linebackers that I can guarantee will be on this roster, and that's Corey Littleton, Nick Kwakowski, Nicholas Marrow, and Divine Diablo. I think those 4 guys, and Diablo is a linebacker, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But those 4 guys will 100% be on this roster, which is going to leave it up. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be between someone like Tanner Muse, who I'm like 95% positive Tanner Muse is going to be on this roster, because we took him with the 3rd round pick. And I want you guys to think about this, right? Like, if you already have 4 guys who are guaranteed to be linebackers, guaranteed to be on the active roster, Tanner Muse would be the 5th guy. That's a ton of linebackers already. And I think ultimately Tanner Muse, technically he's a linebacker, but you could kind of label him as a safety. Same with Diablo. He's a linebacker, but you can kind of label him as a safety. So maybe there'll be a 6th linebacker between Javen White, Max Richardson, Amsar Bilal, and then James Onwuala. And I'm sure I'm butchering his last name. There's a ton of other guys on this roster. Now, I do think that the Raiders don't want the Tanner Muse pick to be labeled a failure, right? Someone actually mentioned this recently that Tanner Muse, when he came to camp, right, the reports last season were he looked awful in camp, right? Someone said that after people realized that this guy's a really bad football player, people said that the Raiders, John Gruden and Mike Mayock, started saying, oh, he's going to be our special teams ace, and he's going to be this guy to have this huge impact on special teams. And this person said that the only reason they were saying that is because they realized this was a bad pick. Like, he is not a good football player. He's not ready to be in the NFL. Either way, I don't know if that's 100% the case, but that does kind of seem like, maybe they realized that was a mistake. 3rd-round pick. So let's just label him as a guy that could potentially be like a special teams ace, right? How many special team ace type of players are there, right? There's really not a lot in the NFL. But the linebacking group is going to be very interesting. If you asked me, which linebacker is going to play all 3 downs, right? I think the one guy that has a shot at playing all 3 downs would be Nick Kwakowski. And outside of that, I don't think Nicholas Marrow, Corey Littleton play all 3 downs at all. Like, I don't see it happening. At the same time, I can see Nicholas Marrow coming off the edge a lot. I can see Nicholas Marrow playing that Leo position, right? Because Nicholas Marrow is a strong football player, man, and he can come off the edge. He proved it last year. I think he had a sack against the Broncos, and I think he might have one unblocked, so maybe that's a bad example to use. But he's good. He's a good football player around the line of scrimmage. He's quick. He's fast. He's strong, though, man. There's a picture that I think I can't remember who it was. I saw it on Instagram this morning. I think it was Mitchell Rentz. He put an Instagram post up of the linebacking group. I think they're out eating. And when you look at all our linebackers, like literally, it was all these linebackers. When you look at them, Nick Kwakowski looked like a punter, and Nicholas Marrow looked like he was like a defensive end. Like, he looked humongous. Like, he looked ripped, man. And maybe I can show that photo tomorrow or something in one of my videos. But Nicholas Marrow looks ripped compared to all the other guys. So I think Nick Marrow could play on the line of scrimmage if needed. He can get after the quarterback. But I do think Kwakowski is the only guy that plays on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd downs. Ultimately, he's the only guy. But I think Nick Marrow could end up playing on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd downs as well, because he is a good coverage linebacker, right? Nicholas Marrow came into the NFL as a safety, right? Like, the Raiders picked him up, and he was actually a strong safety. I think his first ever preseason game, I think his first drive only as well. He ended up playing safety, and then they had him play linebacker on the next drive, and the rest was history, man. He's, like 4 or 5 years into the league now. Corey Littleton's going to be a special situation, because unless he gets his game turned around, I don't really know where he fits, man. Like, I want him to work out, right? Like, absolutely, I want Corey Littleton to work out. But the thing is when it comes to a player like Corey Littleton, he had a lot of success with the team he had success with because of the fact that they had guys like Aaron Donald, Michael Brockers, Clay Matthews, I think, was with the Rams defense as well when he was there. They had a lot of good players on that defense, right? And Corey Littleton was like the 5th, 6th option. So he was running around freely. He wasn't asked to do too much, and he was able to make plays. But that's not the same thing here, right? He's being asked to be the 2nd or 3rd guy on this defense, and he can't step up to that challenge. Now, here's the thing. Next year, he might not be the 2nd or 3rd guy, right? Because in my opinion, going into last season, Corey Littleton was the guy. Like, us fans are saying Littleton's going to be the number 1 guy on this defense. That did not pan out. This year, I think our expectations are lower for Corey Littleton. Corey Littleton. I think Kwakowski has higher expectations. I think Jonathan Abram has higher expectations. I'd even say Cleveland Farrell and Max Crosby have higher expectations. And even Trayvon Mullen, if you really wanted to throw him out there, I think all those guys have higher expectations in my mind than Corey Littleton. I don't think Corey Littleton is going to be the guy to be that number 1 guy for this defense. which could actually favor him, right? Like if you put Littleton in when it's 2nd and 8 or 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15 or whatever it is, right? I think he can excel, man. I still think if you line Corey Littleton up in the slot, you line him up in zone specifically against the tight end. I don't think he's the man-to-man type of guy, right? Line him up over a tight end, let him drop back into a zone, have another guy playing the opposite side of him in a zone as well. And I think that's where he'll make his money. I don't think Corey Littleton is a man coverage linebacker. Nicholas Marrow, on the other hand, is different. I think Nicholas Marrow is better in man than he is in zone. Now, I'm sure he's a perfectly fine football player in zone. I actually haven't gotten to watching him in zone-specific plays. I've been focusing on Corey Littleton playing zone and man. I watch Kwakowski against the run, and I watch Nicholas Marrow in man-to-man situations. And Mauro excels, man. I think Mauro could be that guy that if it is 3rd and 15 and we are going to play man, I think Mauro comes into the game. Littleton might come out. At the same time, Diablo is a guy that we're relying a lot on this season, right? I want to give a shout out really quickly to a new member to this channel. We have Chef B, who is now a member to this channel. Huge shout out to you, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you for becoming a member. I see my man Raid the Tape. I hope you're doing well, man. I was on Raid the Tape show, I think, last Thursday. That was probably like the most fun I've had doing a live show in a long time. So shout out to him. If you guys are not subscribers to Raid the Tape, go check his YouTube channel out. The guy does a great job breaking down film. Probably my #1 film channel for the Raiders, man. And don't doubt Raid the Tape, man. He puts a lot of effort into his channels. He's reached out to me a couple times and asked me my opinions on certain things. I know he made like a video of Cleveland Barrels specifically playing that 3 tech, and we had a conversation about that. But he gets thoroughly into it, right? Like he does his research. So if you guys are not subscribers to Raid the Tape, go check it out. It's right there on the screen. But let's get back into this, man. Jesse wrote us. I appreciate the emoji, even though I know you guys can't see it. I really need to update those emojis, man. But let's get back into the Divine Diablo, because I think this one's very, very, very important for us to understand what his role is going to be. Diablo in college plays strong safety. So if you guys don't know, right, Divine Diablo's like a 6'3". He's tall, he's lengthy, he's big, he's strong. He was a strong safety in college. He played a little bit of free, right? But he was a rangy football player. Like he ran left, he ran right. And he had a fantastic pick against Trevor Lawrence in 2020. I think that was in my Diablo video. I think I showed that one. But he read the play perfectly. Like he went from one sideline across the field and he picked the ball off. He's a rangy football player. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how he makes the conversion from a strong safety in college to linebacker in the NFL, because he's quick. He runs sideline to sideline. He will hit you, even though I don't think he's he's big, but I don't think he's the hardest hitting player. But he will hit you, and he will make tackles. He will play the game of football physically. And I think that is one of the reasons why the Raiders wanted him to play a linebacker first, right? Like Gus Bradley needs guys with speed, because you got to look at Gus Bradley's scheme. Gus Bradley doesn't play the typical 4-3 defense. He doesn't, bring in the typical nickel package. He doesn't do things the typical way. Most defenses run a 3-4 or 4-3, and you know the responsibilities for every single one of those guys. Gus Bradley does things differently, right? He puts a guy like Yannick Ngakoue on the weak side and lines him up in a 9 tech to rush upfield. At the same time, he needs guys to, like Jonathan Abram, to line up 3 yards off the line of scrimmage and defend the run. That's why you have to have linebackers like Diablo, Corey Littleton, and Marrow, guys that are fast, right? Because these guys are committed to the run, which means when it's a play action or the team's going to throw the ball, these guys have to be fast enough to get out of defending the run and get back in coverage and play those zone drops, right? Gus Bradley's schemes, it's difficult. Not everyone can do it, but I think Divine Diablo is a guy that Gus Bradley wanted, because like he converted Kazir White from West Virginia. He converted him from a strong safety in college to a linebacker in the NFL. And White's going into his 5th year now, or his 4th or 5th year into the NFL. I think Diablo is going to be that same guy. Now, don't expect Diablo to be a superstar. Don't expect him to be an all-pro football player. If it happens great, but expect him to just be a good contributor to a good defense, right? It's basically how Corey Littleton was a good contributor for the Rams, right? That's what Diablo can be for the Raiders. Now, Marrow and Littleton are basically both on their final years with the Raiders. Marrow's technically on a 1-year contract. Littleton, I think, has 2 years left, but only this year is guaranteed. His next season's salary is not guaranteed. Kwakowski this might be his final year as well. So this is contract years for all these guys. They want to prove it because they want to be in the NFL next year, right? It's not guaranteed that you're in the NFL. You look at guys like Richard Sherman, the guy hasn't found a football team yet, right? And he's still a good football player. And I know he's up there in age, but it's not guaranteed, man. NFL stands for not for long, man, and that is a fact. A lot of players don't get those opportunities. So contract years, players generally play better. Either way, I think this group at the linebacking position is very deep, man. Very, very, very deep. Javin White is another guy who was a safety in college, I think UNLV. I think he's from Oakland as well, so he has the Raider ties. We kept him around, man. We kept him around, and it's interesting because he went from practice squad, and then I think he came in and played one game last year. I believe I did a film study of that one game he played. There was a play specifically, man, where he went downhill and he hit the running back. I can't remember which game it was last year, but I think it was towards the end of the year. We had some injuries. It could have been the Dolphins game. Don't quote me on that. But Javin White, he looks good, man. He looks like he's a guy that could play downhill, kind of like Kwakowski in that inside linebacking position. I think Kwakowski, Max Richardson, and Javin White are all pretty much the same type of linebacker, right? I think they all play the same position for the Raiders defense. They're all inside linebackers. Now, the thing with an inside linebacker is you don't, especially in a 4-3, you don't have to be the strongest guy, right? Like Nick Kwakowski is probably our smallest linebacker we have, right? Believe it or not, from a strength perspective, right? Like he's pretty skinny for a linebacker, but he's an inside linebacker, which means that the defensive tackle should be able to eat up those double teams, and they should allow Kwakowski to roam and be free, as opposed to like if you're an outside linebacker, sometimes you have to take on maybe it's a pulling guard. You got to get up there and take that on. Not Kwakowski, not in this scheme specifically. I'm pumped up, man. I think we're very deep at the linebacking position. If you guys have questions about the linebackers, let me know right now. But I do want to shift focus, and I want to talk about the secondary because this is going to be interesting. Our defense this year will go as far as our secondary takes us. Like, if our secondary ranks as the 30th best secondary, I think our defense ranks as the 27th in defensive points per game. If our secondary ranks as a top 13 secondary, we'll be a top 17 defense, right? I really do think the secondary is going to be a big part of how successful we are this year. And before we fully get into it, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, man. I really appreciate it. There's over 300 of you guys. You know, it's 6:33 here in California. So Pacific time is 6:33, which means on the East Coast is 9:30, man. I know a lot of you guys are here from the East Coast, so I really, really appreciate every single one of you guys. If you guys can hit that thumbs up button, it really does help this channel. Let's get into the secondary, man. We can start this off right away. We know who the 5 guys that are going to primarily be playing are going to be, right? It'll be Trayvon Mullen, Trayvon Merrick, Jonathan Abram, Casey Hayward, and Damon Arnett. Those 5 guys will be the primary guys. Here's the thing, right? Gus Bradley's scheme is different than most people. We've already talked about this, right? He lines up guys in that Leo role. He lines up guys like the strong safety 3-4 yards off the line of scrimmage. So Jonathan Abrams, he's not going to have an easy time this year. He's going to have to adjust his vision. But here's the thing, right? When I watch Jonathan Abram around the box, 5-6 yards away from the line of scrimmage, as opposed to playing that split safety look, right? 15 yards off the line of scrimmage, he doesn't look as good. He looks better when he's in the box, right? Jonathan Abram looks like a superstar around the line of scrimmage, defending the run, guarding slot receivers or tight ends close to the line of scrimmage. That's where Jonathan Abram looks like a superstar in my mind, right? Jonathan Abram in Gus Bradley's system is going to do exactly that, right? Gus Bradley in the past had Cam Chancellor and Derwin James, and both of those guys, 90% of the time, lined up within like 5 or 6 yards of the line of scrimmage. And Jonathan Abram's going to be asked to do that role. But here's the thing, right? Derwin James and Cam Chancellor were bigger guys than Jonathan Abram. So I know Gus Bradley's a professional, and I'm sure Gus Bradley understands that. But Jonathan Abram's going to have to take on guards and tackles and tight ends. And what I mean by take on against the run, those guys are going to run at Jonathan Abram. They're going to pull, come around, and Jonathan Abram has to lower his shoulder and hit those guys. I remember a viral video of Cam Chancellor once doing that. I don't know if it was to like a Niners offense lineman or maybe it was to like a Cardinals offense lineman. Cam Chancellor hit one of those guards and he laid him out, man. And that's the kind of stuff that Cam Chancellor used to do. And Jonathan Abram's going to be playing a similar position. Now, I don't know if Abram's big and strong enough to do that, but Gus Bradley, is going to have to see, and we'll find out if he can do that. But ultimately, I do think Jonathan Abram is going to, I do think that Jonathan Abram has had a really good career so far. I know a lot of people disagree with me. But at the same time, if you watch Jonathan Abram's film and you watch him, just key in on him every single play, you see that 90% of the time he's making the correct decision. He's making the correct play. Even if you feel like he's not being targeted, it's because he's making the correct play, right? He's doing his job. There are times where, he does something and you just think, man, why would you do that? Doesn't make sense. He plays a little too aggressive at times, and he needs to fix just those certain things, right? But either way, Jonathan Abram's the true strong safety for the Raiders. He's the true starter for the Raiders. And at free safety, we have Trayvon Merrick. And I believe that Trayvon Merrick is going to be a fantastic football player, man. I really do believe that Trayvon Merrick is going to be the one guy that's really going to change this whole entire defense around. Because we have Jonathan Abram who can play within the box. We have guys like Kwakowski who can roam, playing that inside linebacker position. We have guys like Yannick Ngakoue that can get after the quarterback. But what the Raiders didn't have, literally up until just recently, is they didn't have a true free safety, a guy that can really roam, a guy that can really get deep, and who can really do stuff, right? It's going to be interesting because Trayvon Merrick is going to be playing free safety for the Raiders. How many interceptions do you guys think he gets this year? I think he can get 3 or 4 interceptions. Like I think he's going to get his hands on the ball, man. He's a smart football player. I think what Gus Bradley is going to ask of him, I think he's going to excel in it, right? And you guys got to keep in mind, the Denver Broncos, the Chargers, the Chiefs, they haven't played Gus Bradley with the Raiders, right? They haven't played a Gus Bradley Raider defense with the Raider players specifically. On top of that, how many guys are different this year, right? You got Yannick Ngakoue, Trayvon Merrick. You have some of the other secondary players. You have some of the other defensive tackles like Quentin Jefferson, Solomon Thomas, Darius Philon, and Darius Stills as well. You have all these new guys, right? Malcolm Koonce, all these new guys coming into the Raiders with a brand new coach. And I know, technically they played against Gus Bradley's defense with the Chargers. But I would argue that the Chargers' defensive players were hurt a ton, right? Like, you can't have Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram, and Derwin James out like every other game, right? It's not going to allow the defense to thrive. The Raiders got to be healthy. Gus Bradley implementing his defense. I think Merrick has a chance to get like 3-4 interceptions this year. I think Jonathan Abram might get a couple interceptions, but I think Jonathan Abram might have more sacks this year. I think he'll have more pressures. I expect him to have at least one strip sack this year, right, where he strips the quarterback. At the same time, at our corner positions, we have the option of 3 guys that will, and I don't know where they'll line up, to be 100% honest, you guys. Some people are saying we'll put Casey Hayward as the slot corner. We'll put Damon Arnett and Trayvon Mullen on the outsides. I don't know, man. The thing with the slot corner is it's the hardest position on defense. Slot corner, it doesn't get tougher than being a slot corner. So you want your quickest, fastest, best corner playing the slot. And I'm not saying Casey Hayward's not the best corner. He could be, right? Who knows? I don't know how good of a player he will be with where he is in terms of age this year. But he's slower. He's not the same guy he was 5 years ago, right? He's not the same Pro Bowl type of player he was 5 years ago, right? He's 31, 32 years old. He's up there in age. So if you're telling me he's going to be the slot corner for the Raiders, I don't know. I don't really see him being able to do that. Now, if Casey Hayward plays the right corner, Mullen continues to play the left corner, maybe you put Arnett on the inside, right? I don't think Trayvon Mullen is quick enough to play slot corner either. I think Trayvon Mullen would be better as an outside corner. Arnett could be a slot corner, but I don't see that either, to be honest with you guys. Slot corner is going to be a tough position for the Raiders to really fill because we don't have a true slot guy. Like, we have LaMarcus Joyner, and I didn't want the Raiders to get rid of him, but obviously he wasn't willing to renegotiate his contract. He wasn't willing to take less money, and the Raiders ultimately cut him. And I think this year would have been a good year to have LaMarcus Joyner, right? To play slot corner in a Gus Bradley defense, I think it would have benefited him. I think Paul Guenther really impacted a lot of these players in a negative way. But I don't think the Raiders have a true slot corner. Now, some people are saying it'll be Nate Hobbs, right? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about having a rookie cornerback be our slot corner. Like, I don't like that idea. At the same time, Amik Robertson was, our LaMarcus Joyner replacement. At the same time, do you guys trust Amik Robertson? I don't know, man. I don't know if I do trust him. So it'll be interesting to kind of see who's going to play the slot. Now, some people are saying it could be potentially Rasul Douglas. Rasul Douglas played outside corner, I think 98% of his snaps over the last 3 years. So he didn't play slot corner either. It'll be interesting, man. That slot corner position will be really interesting. Now, here's something we could potentially do. Now, don't quote me that this is what's going to happen. But I do think it makes more sense to do this because, if you ask me who's our best secondary player right now, I would say it's Jonathan Abram. If you ask me who our second best secondary player is, I would probably say it's going to be Trayvon Merrick, right? I think this season he will be our second best secondary player. People were comparing Trayvon Merrick to Tyrann Mathieu coming out of college, right? If he has that sort of impact, he'll be our second best secondary player. I wouldn't mind if Trayvon Merrick played the slot position, right? Because you guys got to keep this in mind. In college at TCU, he played slot 35% of the time, right? And that's a lot if you consider the fact that he played free safety 30% of the time. He played strong safety 30% of the time. He played linebacker maybe 5% of the time. He played on the line of scrimmage a couple snaps. He lined up everywhere, right? So he's the guy that could do everything. Now, does it make sense to put Trayvon Merrick as a free safety where he's going to have minimal impact, right? A free safety, specifically a post safety, right? A guy like a Gus Bradley safety, like Earl Thomas, they're going to have minimal impacts, right? Because you're having them line up so far deep, they're not going to do a ton. So would it make more sense to put someone like Tyree Glispy or Carl Joseph as the free safety and put Merrick in the slot and then put Jonathan Abram on the opposite side in the slot, right? Strong safety slots, kind of the same position. Does that make more sense? I wouldn't argue against it, man. I think that makes a ton of choice. It makes a ton of sense. I don't know, man. I think the slot position's such a difficult position. And some of you guys are asking about Trayvon Mullen. I personally am not as high on Trayvon Mullen. Now, I would say that in the secondary, he is the third guy. I would say, right behind Jonathan Abram and Trayvon Merrick. I would say it's Trayvon Mullen. And right there is someone like Damon Arnett. I'm not as high on Trayvon Mullen. I know a lot of other people are very high on Trayvon Mullen. I'm not that high on him. I've watched his film. Anyone that has not seen his actual film, I suggest you guys go watch his film. I think Trayvon Mullen lacks a very important thing, and that's speed and change of direction. I feel like he doesn't have it. And I do think that could limit him in the long run. Now, maybe that's like against the Chiefs. He might not look that fast, but I've seen Mullen lose on against quicker receivers. At the same time, he does a great job, in my opinion, jumping the throw, right, and getting those interceptions. How many times have we seen Trayvon Mullen be in position to almost intercept the pass? I do think he has great awareness. He has a lot of good traits, but I do think his change of direction and speed isn't that great. And I think that kind of limits how great of a player he could be. Now, I even said this, and I'm open about this. I think Damon Arnett has the higher ceiling between him and Trayvon Mullen. And now we'll obviously see this year how Arnett kind of, how he goes into his second year, how he kind of adjusts to the game speed this year. Because last year, man, between his injuries and I think he had COVID once, he would hit people and boom, he'd be out. Between all his injuries, he looked good at times, but he looked bad at times. But having injuries and not playing, it really impacts you, right? Trayvon Mullen's been pretty consistent over the last 2 years. Either way, I'm excited to watch those guys specifically in the defense this year because I think those guys both have potential, but I need to see it, right? And Trayvon Mullen, I need to see more of in this year because this is his third year. Damon Arnett, this is only his second year, right? So let's not compare the two guys in Arnett's rookie year and Mullen's second year, right? Let's consider where Mullen was his rookie year, where Arnett is his rookie year. And then we'll see how Arnett is in his second year and Mullen was last year, which was his second year. I always keep that in mind. I know people are already writing off Arnett, and they're kind of throwing Arnett and Mullen into the same group, but they're not. Mullen has a year in the NFL longer than him. Either way, let's jump forward and let's discuss. So just to kind of clarify, I think ultimately the slot will be up for grabs, right? Maybe Damon Arnett plays the slot. Maybe Casey Hayward plays the slot. But I doubt either of those guys play the slot. I think chances are Amik Robertson, maybe Rasul Douglas. I'd really have to see. Maybe it's Amik Robertson, or maybe it's someone like Trayvon Merrick, right? Maybe Merrick plays the slot because you guys got to keep this in mind. Playing the slot is the hardest position on defense. On top of that, playing the slot, you have such a huge impact, right? If there's a run coming to the outside, it's a stretch, it's a zone, whatever it is to the outside, and you're in the slot, you basically get to set the edge, especially in a 4-3 defense. You are going to be the edge setter, and that's such an important role. And I have faith that Trayvon Merrick in those run plays is going to set the edge and make the tackle because he's a smart football player. If you have the smartest guys setting the edge for your defense is going to succeed because setting the edge is not something that everyone knows how to do, right? Last year specifically, there was a play where I think it was Keyshawn Nixon was in the game. For whatever reason, he took the inside, and I believe it was against the Chargers. They hit us for like 40 yards. Or maybe it was the Dolphins game. They hit us for like 40, 50 yards. But setting the edge is a big part of playing the defense, being that containment, and I think Merrick can do that well. So it'll be interesting to kind of see. And I do understand that we've already kind of said Merrick will be playing free safety. Just because Merrick plays free safety doesn't mean he'll end up being the free safety by the time the end of the season comes. At the same time, it doesn't mean that he'll be 100% of the time the free safety, right? If it's 3rd and 15, why not put someone else at free safety and maybe or you put two safeties, right? You do the split safety look, right? Gus Bradley's going to do the split safety look. He's not going to be a true one free safety on 3rd and 15, right? That doesn't make sense. You're not going to have 8 guys in the box when it's 3rd and 15. So it'll be interesting. Tyree Glispy, let's talk about his role because a lot of people aren't 100% sure where he is going to be. So I want to talk about Tyree Glispy. Huge shout out to Docs. Thank you, Docs, for being tuned in. If you guys are not subscribers to Docs, go check his channel out, man. He does probably the best live interviews. He brings on a ton of people. He's fun to watch, man. So go subscribe to him if you guys are not already subscribed. All right, let's jump into this, man. Let's talk a little bit about Tyree Glispy. A lot of you guys have asked me, man, what is Gillespie and is he a strong safety? And I always say Tyree Glispy is not a strong safety, man. People look at he's hit some people in the past, and they'll say he's a strong safety. In college, he played free safety most of the time, right? Like I'd say 60% of the time he was a true free safety, like the same way Gus Bradley uses his free safeties. I think the Raiders wanted Tyree Glispy a ton this year. Like, I think they really wanted him. And I feel like it was because of his fit within Gus Bradley's defense. I think that's a big factor in for the Raiders trading up to getting him, right? Because he was still there, and the Raiders didn't have a 4th-round pick. They traded up, and they took him. I think the reason why they wanted him was because of the fact that they knew that, hey, if Merrick has to play the slot, if Merrick has to play strong safety, right, in case Jonathan Abram were to get hurt, Tyree Glispy could be a true free safety. Now, I do think that was ultimately one of the reasons why they brought Karl Joseph back as well, is because Joseph could also play free safety. And obviously, I believe Karl Joseph was, ultimately the worst case scenario. Karl Joseph's the starting free safety. Best case scenario, we get Merrick. We maybe pick up Gillespie as well, or at least we get one of those guys, and we got both. Right, so I do think that if Merrick jumps into the box, strong safety, slot corner, linebacker, potentially on like 3rd and 17 situations or whatever, right? We'll be in those situations at least once, maybe every other game, right? When we're in those 2nd or 3rd and really, really long, I could see Merrick absolutely stepping into the box, Jonathan Abram, and maybe Gillespie steps in at free safety. Obviously, it'll depend on his development, right? It'll depend on his health. I think ultimately Gillespie will make his biggest impact this year. Obviously, as a special teams player, he'll play on punt. He'll play on kickoffs. He'll do all that good stuff. And I do still think he'll play a ton this year. I think he'll play 25% of total snaps. But I think he's going to be a coverage guy specifically, unless guys get hurt. And that's the thing, right? Every single year, guys get hurt. So it'll be interesting from that perspective to see where he plays. But I think Tyree Glispy is a free safety. And I have seen some people say that Gillespie is a strong safety. And they always go to the fact that he tackles and he's stronger. He's kind of big compared to most safeties, right? But I think he is a free safety and he has range, right? One of the things that I watch Gillespie, if you watch the Alabama-Missouri game specifically, I think on the 1st or 2nd play of the game, he was bracketing with the corner on Devontae Smith, who was lined up as the slot wide receiver. Devontae Smith ran I believe it was a dig route. He ran a dig, and the corner was shadowing the outside, and Gillespie hit him, man. Like, he laid him out. And that was a hit that set the tone for that game. Now, Missouri obviously still lost, but that's what the Raiders have to do, man. This year specifically, when we play the Chiefs, when we play the Chargers, when we play the Broncos, when we play these divisional games, we have to set the tone. We have to hit people. Against the Baltimore Ravens, I need Jonathan Abram or Gillespie or Trayvon Merrick. I need one of these guys to smack Lamar Jackson. Like, hit him hard, man, whenever the game begins, to set the tone, right? Because our defense has to play physical. We have physical football players to do it as well, right? Trayvon Mullen and Damon Arnett, they can tackle, right? So those guys can play physical if needed from the cornerback position. Unlike Gary and Conley, who we had a couple years ago, guys who couldn't tackle, who couldn't be physical. We don't have that anymore. We have Jonathan Abram and I think Nick Marrow can play physical. I think guys like Quentin Jefferson and Cleveland Farrell could play physical because they're bigger than most guys at their position specifically, right? We got to be physical, and I think Tyree Glispy can also bring that physicality. When you watch him in that Alabama game specifically, Devontae Smith, he laid a big hit. They had Jalen Waddle run Jalen Waddle came in motion. They gave him, I don't know if it was a jet sweep or if they pitched it to him forward. They handed him the ball off, and Tyree Glispy from the post safety chased it down, and it was like a gain of 1 or 2 yards. Those are the type of plays that he makes, right? He'll hit you hard. He has range to go to the other side of the field and make a tackle. Gillespie has a ton of range, and I think between him and Merrick, we have 2 guys that can both play free safety. I think Karl Joseph can play free safety as well. I think between Karl Joseph, Trayvon Merrick, and Tyree Glispy, I think if any of those guys had to play strong safety in case Jonathan Abram were to get hurt, right? Because we have to keep in mind, injuries is a part of the game. I think Trayvon Merrick can play that strong safety role. I know some people have mentioned Divine Diablo playing strong safety as well. Here's the issue I have with it. Playing strong safety, your run fits are going to be different than playing linebacker, weak side, strong side, inside, whatever. Your run fits are going to be different, right? As a strong side, as a linebacker in general, your run fits are going to be, tackle to tackle, as opposed to as a strong safety. It's going to be like the tight end to the outside of the tight end, like, crack blocks and stuff like that. With that, I feel like Diablo, if they're saying he's going to be a linebacker, they should let him be a linebacker. They should not go back and forth. They should not switch it up. There's no need to do that. Let him play his natural position that you want him to play, right? I know his natural position is probably safety, but if you want him to be a true linebacker, let him be a true linebacker. If Jonathan Abrams struggles, if he gets hurt, do not try to put Diablo out there. That's going to hinder his growth. And with Paul Gunther, that's what we did a ton. We were just moving guys around because we didn't have depth. Paul Gunther didn't know what the hell he was doing. So with Diablo specifically, I don't see him being a secondary player. I think he'll be a linebacker. At the same time, we have guys like Dallin Leavitt. We have Rashawn Golden, who, even though he's listed as a strong safety, I don't really know where he'll play. Ultimately, I think 4 guys will end up making the roster in the safety position. I think it'll be Jonathan Abram, Trayvon Merrick, Carl Joseph, and Tyree Glispy. I think those 4 guys will be the secondary players. Let's talk about the corners. Now, I already said it'll be Mullen and Arnett most likely starting on the outsides, and I think Casey Hayward will come in and out as well. Keep in mind, right, 3 corners on the outside are going to play most of the snaps. They'll, rotate in and out. People don't remember this, but Nevin Lawson played a ton last year, right? Don't forget how much he played. Keyshawn Nixon had probably played like 10% of all total defensive snaps at right corner. Isaiah Johnson played a lot, right? So we have a ton of corners that can come in and out and play, right? So that part will definitely be interesting. We got another super chat, and I want to definitely answer the super chat really quickly. Andrew left a $5 super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Once again, I may disagree at the time, but I love the live chats. I appreciate the time you put into your scouting videos and collaborations. I really appreciate that, man, because I definitely do put a ton of time into making YouTube videos. I post every single day, right? So if it's not live, it's a video. I'm always posting. I'm always trying to get content out for you guys. And sometimes it does get hard, right? Like, there's not a ton to talk about. But I try to make it work. I try to get creative. And I love talking football, and I love reading your guys' comments. So I really appreciate all of you guys, and I really appreciate the $5 super chat. It really does mean a lot. So thank you for that. But yeah, just getting back into the second, let's talk about the slot corner, right? So who's going to be the true slot corner? I don't think it's Casey Hayward. I think people that are saying Casey Hayward's going to be a slot corner, I think they don't understand the importance of the slot corner position. Is the hardest position on defense. If you tell me that as an outside corner, you have the boundaries to help you, right? You're really only playing the insides. As a slot, you don't have that. A guy can run right, a guy can run left, he can run deep, he can do whatever else he can do, and you have to cover it all. So that's such a difficult position to play. Do the Raiders have a guy that can line up? I don't think that's Casey Hayward. He's not quick enough. He's not fast enough. If you ask me, I think the one guy that makes the most sense to play slot is Amik Robertson. I think Amik Robertson makes the most sense. Now, I know he didn't have a ton of success last year, and I hate the fact that people do this all the time. People always look at rookie players and look at their rookie seasons, and they always judge a player off their rookie seasons. Like, they pretend like developing and growing into a player isn't a real thing. Right, people wrote off Colton Miller so quickly. People have already written off players like Cleveland Farrell. You got to give them that third year to prove it, right? 3 years and you know what a player is, right? And sometimes it takes players longer, but depending on position as well. I think corner is such a hard position in general. Slot corner is just that much harder. I think Amik Robertson makes the most sense to play that slot, at least to kind of see what he can do. I see some comments, people saying about Amik Robertson. Someone said Amik Robertson is a dog. Joshua, thank you for the comment. Hell yeah, Amik Robertson, a straight dog. I agree, man. There's something to the game of football that people don't think. Mentality, man. You have to have that killer instincts, that killer mentality. You have to be able to understand that football is a physical sport. And you have to understand that if you want to be the best, you have to train as the best. You have to have the mentality and mindset to be the best. He has it, man. Amik Robertson has it. So don't write him off yet. I think slot corner, Amik Robertson makes a ton of sense. Again, Casey Hayward, in my opinion, does not make any sense to play. Either way, Nevin Lawson is another player I want to talk about. As you guys know, he's suspended for the first 2 weeks. And last year, he was suspended, I think, for the first 4 weeks. He was still on our roster last year, man. And people think that Nevin Lawson is going to get cut. And maybe he does get cut, right? Ultimately, maybe he does. But I look at past years, and he played a lot last year, man. Anytime our primary corners, Arnett, were to get hurt, Nevin Lawson was the first guy to jump in there and play. And I know he didn't have a great year, but Nevin Lawson's just an average corner, right? And there's nothing wrong with being an average player. The NFL, 90% of NFL players are average players, right? The game is not made up of superstar players. Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald, those aren't the majority of NFL players. Those are like 3 or 4% of the NFL. Then there's a ton of really good football players. There's some, maybe a little bit good players. And then it's just average guys. And then you'll have some below average guys that eventually will be, out of the league. I think Nevin Lawson's just an average player, man. And I think average means you can stick around in the league. Raid the Tape asks a great question. And I say this all the time, man. So he's saying, why does Amik make sense to play slot when he was an outside cornerback in college? That's a great point. In college, I think he had like 7-8 interceptions his final year. And I think he had like another 18-19 pass breakups in his final season at Louisiana Tech. Like, he was a real good outside corner. And when the Raiders said we're going to bring him in and have him play slot, it didn't make a ton of sense in my mind either, right? And I don't really know why the Raiders would have done this. I talked to a couple of people. Why would any team, right, take a corner who has had success playing on the outside and try to convert him into an inside corner? Inside's a hard position. Why not just go look for an inside slot corner, right? So some of the things that people have told me is, and this is more of just like evaluating a player from the slot position in general. You have to look at the intangibles that a guy brings. You have to look at how he plays the run, right? Slot corners have a huge impact on the run as opposed to playing like an outside corner. They don't have that big of an impact on the run. So you have to look at that too, right? And I think that's where people don't think about Amik Robertson in that aspect, because they write him off like he's 5'9", 5'10". They'll write him off and say, maybe he can't play the run. Amik Robertson can play the run. He will hit somebody. Right? He'll stick his helmet into there. He'll put his nose in there, and he will hit somebody. Now, why we don't put him at outside corner as opposed to a slot is because finding a slot cornerback is really difficult. You can find outside corners at a higher rate than you can find slot corners. Slot corners is a very hard position to find. Maybe Mike Mayock or Gus Bradley or John Gruden, maybe one of these guys liked him and they saw in him. It's probably Mike Mayock, right? That would probably make the most sense. They saw that Amik Robertson has good traits. He's quick, great change of direction, great hips. That translates into a slot corner, right? So you take a guy like that from the outside and you put him in the slot. Now, it might not always work, right? But that's just what it is, right? Not every, one of the things people think about is, if a guy's a slot corner, he should be great at everything. Coverage, playing the run, great against in zone, great in man, great against outside zones, great when linemen are coming to pull. Those are all different situations. There's 1,000 different situations in real life game, right? When the game of football is on, when a play is going, there's 1,000 different things that could happen. Players aren't great in every single situation, right? There's a reason why there's situational pass rushers, right, from the defensive end spots. There's a reason why you have guys that might only be good against the pass and are terrible against the run. It's up to a coach to put those guys in position to have the biggest impact, right? Either way, Raid the Tape. I appreciate you a lot, man. I got to have you on the show again soon. Let's just get back into this really quickly, and let's talk about Nevin Lawson. Do you guys think Nevin Lawson is going to be on the roster this season? I think he is, man. If I really had to guess right now, I would say Casey Hayward, Trayvon Mullen, Damon Arnett, Nevin Lawson are all locks in to be on the roster. Outside of those guys, I think Rasul Douglas, Amik Robertson, Isaiah Johnson, Keyshawn Nixon, and Nate Hobbs, those 5 guys will ultimately be competing for the final 2 spots, right? I think we'll keep about 6 corners on the roster. I do think one of the things that's going to end up happening, and this happened last year as well, is Nevin Lawson suspended for the first 2 games, so he won't count as a spot of the active roster. So a guy like Nate Hobbs could be on the roster in weeks 1 and 2. When weeks 3 comes around, they can see where Nevin Lawson's at in terms of, is he ready to play? If so, maybe Nate Hobbs goes to the practice squad and Nevin Lawson ends up on the active roster. At the same time, if Nate Hobbs outperforms Nevin Lawson, I think Nevin Lawson gets cut, man. He's already, he's not going to play weeks 1 and 2. He's suspended for those 2 games. If Nate Hobbs outperforms him, why keep a guy who's only going to be available for 14 games? Why not let the young rookie have an active roster spot and compete? At the same time, we have guys like Keyshawn Nixon and Isaiah Johnson. Now, between those 2 guys, I like Keyshawn Nixon more, but Gus Bradley has already said that he likes Isaiah Johnson's body type, right? He likes his film. So that's going to be a very interesting battle in camp. Here's the thing, right? Linebackers, safeties, corners, the Raiders are super, super deep, and we have not been this deep in a really long time. Really, really long time, right? And I don't know if I don't know if these guys will pan out, right? Like, truth be told, I have a lot of confidence in all these guys, and chances are, if if we just go back 10 years, every year of the last 10 years, chances are our defense is going to suck again, right? That's probably what's going to happen. But if we have a good defense, in order to have a good defense, we have to have a new coach to put in a new defense, right? Because if we have Paul Gunther going into year 4, we know we're going to be trash. This is the year we could potentially have a good defense, right? Because this is the year that we got a new coach for the defense, right? We got Gus Bradley. So if there's any year we're going to be good, if we're going to become a top 25, 20, top 15, top 10, top 5, the number 1 defense, it's now, right, with Gus Bradley taking over. And it might not be this year. Maybe it's next year. Maybe it's in 2 years. We have a lot of rookies. We have a lot of guys that have to learn the system. We have a lot of guys that we don't even know if they'll be here next year, right? Like, what if Gus Bradley doesn't like Jonathan Abram, right? What if he says he can't take on pulling offensive linemen well, right? And let's say Gus Bradley says, Jonathan Abram's not the fit that I want for my strong safety. Jonathan Abram can't play like Derwin James played for me, or Jonathan Abram can't play how Cam Chancellor played for me, right? If that's what Gus Bradley thinks, then Jonathan Abram might not be on this roster. Now, I just use that as an example. I doubt Gus Bradley is going to say that. Truth be told, I think Jonathan Abram is going to be the best Raiders defender this season. I've already kind of talked about how high I am of Jonathan Abram. I've broken his film down, but I think maybe it's time to do another film study. When I do my film studies, I kind of just show plays. I don't really have a storyline or anything like that. I kind of just show plays and just kind of get into it, because a lot of the times it's demonetized anyways. So I don't really care to like fully put the time and effort into it. But maybe I'll give you guys, different situations, different scenarios. Maybe I'll show you guys plays of him like pass rushing, lining up on the line of scrimmage, lining up in the box as a linebacker, lining up as a strong safety, lining up as a free safety, a split safety, lining up in the slot as a corner, lining up on the outside as a corner. Maybe I'll share all those different situations with you guys. Maybe I'll share with you guys, when offenses are on a 2-minute drill in the fourth quarter, they're hurrying it up. Maybe I'll share all those different situations with you guys. At the end of the day, I don't know which one of our players is the perfect player, because all of our players have flaws, right? But all of our players also have good traits and good qualities. And it's going to be up to Gus Bradley to put all those players in position. At the same time, we have a lot of depth. We haven't had that in a long time. Jonathan Hankins played the second most pass rushing snaps last year. That should not happen. Jonathan Hankins is not a pass rusher, right? So again, depth, players, new scheme, everything looks better for the defense this year, and I'm pumped the hell up for it, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Before you guys leave, please hit that thumbs up button. It only takes you guys a second, and it really does help this video a ton. I really appreciate every single one of you guys. I really, really do. And I hope you guys all have a great rest of your Sunday, and I will see you guys next time with another video.